Welcome to a brand new deep dive into the source material. Today we're looking at a really fascinating stack of sources.
Yeah, it's a good one today.
It really is. It's anchored by this presentation from the CSCMP Edge 2021 conference,
Right.
delivered by the head of logistics for North America at Unilever. And he was up there alongside the creators of this load building software. It's called Auto02 by a company called Provisioni.
Provision II, yeah.
Sure.
And we've also got some recent industry research in the mix, too.
Right, covering supply chain optimization, capacity constraints, corporate sustainability, all that good stuff.
All the heavy hitters.
Exactly. So our mission today is basically to figure out how a massive, Fortune 500 manufacturer like Unilever solved this huge global capacity problem. And they did it just by fundamentally rethinking the mechanics of how they pack a freight truck.
Which sounds so simple on the surface.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. To really grasp the scale of the problem here, I want you to think about the last time you packed a car for a family road trip.
Oh, boy. Always a stress test.
It is. You've got the suitcases, the cooler, the random tote bags, maybe a dog bed that you're trying to shove in there.
Right, and you spend like 30 minutes rearranging everything.
Yes, you rearrange it, you finally slam the trunk shut, and you step back thinking, okay, I have used absolutely every single inch of available space.
But you haven't.
You never do. You look through the window and you realize there's like that one awkward gap behind the wheel well, or maybe some empty air right below the rear window.
Yeah, you always leave just a little bit of empty space.
Exactly. Now, for a family vacation, who cares? That's no big deal. But I want you to scale that image up. Imagine that trunk is a massive 53-foot freight trailer.
Right.
And imagine you aren't packing just one of them. You are packing hundreds of them every single day, leaving warehouses all over the world.
Yeah, it completely changes the math.
It really does. So we have to ask, what is the compounding financial and really the environmental cost of leaving just a little bit of empty space in every single one of those trucks?
Well, it's an incredible drain on resources. And honestly, it's usually completely invisible to the people at the top.
Invisible how?
Well, the beauty of this case study is how it exposes that hidden leak. Because when we look at the financial reality of the modern supply chain, especially for the kind of high-volume freight a giant like Unilever is moving, deployment costs are massive.
We're talking about the 30% factor, right?
Exactly. Deployment costs represent over 30% of their total supply chain expenses.
Wow. Over 30%. That is a brutal metric.
It really is.
Because deployment, that's just physically moving finished goods from the manufacturing plant to the customer-facing distribution centers. It's just the heavy lifting.
Right, you're moving pure bulk.
Yeah. So if a third of your operational expense is tied up just in getting the product from point A to point B, any friction in that process is just going to absolutely punish your P&L.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the specific operational hurdle Unilever was trying to clear here. Because before bringing in Auto02, they were actually running their deployment trucks at about a 90 to 95% utilization rate.
Okay, I have to pause on that number. Because out in the real world, 95% is a massive win.
Sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah. If my kid comes home with a 95 on a math test, we're putting that on the fridge.
For sure.
In a corporate setting, hitting a 95% KPI is usually when the management team, pops champagne. So why is a 95% utilization rate considered a problem that requires aggressive corporate intervention?
What's fascinating here is how the physics of empty space behave when you multiply them across an entire enterprise network.
Okay, break that down for me.
You're right that 95% sounds like operational excellence. But let's look at that remaining 5%.
The empty air.
Right, the empty air. At Unilever's volume, where you have hundreds of massive shipments moving daily, a 5% gap means you are paying full price for a trailer, but shipping a portion of nothing.
Right.
And if you compound 5% of empty air across, say, 20 outbound trucks.
Wait, 5 times 20? That's 100%.
Exactly. You have effectively displaced an entire truckload of product. So you now have to secure a 21st truck just to carry the overflow that mathematically should have fit into the first 20.
Oh, wow. So you are artificially inflating your fleet size.
Entirely artificial.
And in the context of 2021, which is when this presentation took place, that was a nightmare scenario. We were looking at a severe global truck driver shortage back then.
Yeah, capacity was incredibly tight.
Right, and massive volatility in fuel costs. So securing that 21st truck meant going out to the spot market, paying premium rates, and trying to find carrier capacity that, frankly, didn't really exist.
The broader market context is so critical here. Every unnecessary truck you generated wasn't just, a line item on a spreadsheet.
Right.
It was consuming incredibly scarce carrier capacity that your network desperately needed elsewhere. Which actually brings us to a quote from the presentation that I think really frames their mindset.
Oh, yeah, the Giovanni Del Bon quote.
Yeah, he was the head of logistics for North America at Unilever, and he said, even a well-run company like Unilever sees opportunity.
Which is a very, very diplomatic way of saying, we are excellent at what we do, but this 95% plateau is still leaving millions of dollars on the warehouse floor.
Exactly. Very diplomatic.
But here's the disconnect for me. If the problem is just that the trucks are 5% empty, and you know that 5% is bleeding capital, the obvious solution doesn't seem to require advanced constraint-solving software.
You'd think so, yeah.
Right. Like, why can't the centralized planners just walk down to the loading dock and tell the warehouse supervisor, hey, pack the trucks fuller?
Well, that is the exact trap that planners fall into. And it's actually why that 95% plateau exists across the whole industry in the first place.
Really, just a communication gap.
It's a reality gap. Planners sit in an office, they look at the warehouse management system, the WMS, and they see that a trailer has a legal maximum weight capacity of, let's say, 45,000 pounds.
Okay.
So they write a deployment order for 45,000 pounds of product. They assume the dock can just make it fit. But they're completely ignoring the physical reality of the dock door.
Because loading a 53-foot trailer isn't just about, throwing weight into a giant box.
Not at all.
You've got DOT axle weight regulations. You can't just stuff all the heavy pallets into the nose of the trailer, or the truck is illegal for the highway.
Right.
The driver gets slapped with a massive fine at the weigh station, and the whole load is delayed. You have to balance the weight perfectly across the tandem axle.
Exactly. And axle weight is just the first layer of the puzzle. You also have to factor in cube utilization.
Like actually taking advantage of the vertical 3D space.
Right. And then you add stackability constraints on top of that. Yeah. Because you cannot put heavy, dense pallets of liquid detergent on top of fragile, lightweight boxes of tea bags.
Right. Or you just end up with crushed product and massive write-offs.
Exactly. And then you add in the complication of irregular promotional displays. The weirdly shaped cardboard end caps for grocery stores.
Oh, yeah. Those are a nightmare to pack.
Right. So suddenly you are asking a forklift driver to solve a multivariable calculus problem in their head on the fly.
It's like asking them to play a game of 3D Tetris while blindfolded while reading a legal rulebook on highway weight limits.
That's a great way to put it.
All while trying to maintain their picks per hour rate on the forklift. It's just an impossible cognitive load for a human being operating heavy machinery.
Which is exactly why the workers naturally built in a safety buffer.
The 5%.
Yes. To ensure the truck was safe, legal, and wouldn't result in damaged goods, veteran loaders would rely on what they call tribal knowledge. They would mentally calculate what felt right, and they would stop loading at 90 or 95%. Because pushing it to 100% manually was just way too risky.
So the friction between the planner's perfect spreadsheet and the dock worker's physical reality is what created that 5% gap.
Exactly.
Okay, so that brings us to the technological solution. Auto O2 by Provision A. We know it's a constraint solver, but I really want to get into the mechanics of how it actually bridges that gap between the planner and the dock. Like, how does it handle all those variables that usually break a manual load?
Well, it basically acts as an aggressive mathematical filter before a single pallet is ever even moved.
Okay.
Auto O2 ingests a massive data feed directly from the company's ERP and WMS systems. It pulls in the exact dimensions, the weight, the crushability factor, and the specific customer requirements for every single SKU waiting to be shipped.
Wow. So it knows the ingredients of the puzzle down to the millimeter.
It does.
So it isn't using theoretical planner data. It's using the live ground truth data from the warehouse floor.
Yes. Real-time data. And it runs millions of potential loading permutations in a single pass.
Millions.
Millions. It figures out the absolute maximum payload that satisfies the DOT axle weights, the stackability rules, and the damage prevention requirements. Yeah. And then it outputs the mathematically perfect load.
That's incredible.
It is, but here's the thing. The math alone isn't what makes this a game changer.
Really? Why not?
Because there are actually plenty of load planning tools out there that generate great theoretical plans that still completely fail at the dock.
Because a piece of paper with a theoretical plan doesn't help the guy driving the forklift if the execution is a mess.
Exactly.
Like if the software says, put pallet A here and pallet B there, but pallet A is in rack 1 and pallet B is a mile away in rack 50, you've just destroyed your dock velocity.
Right.
The math might be perfect, but the labor cost to actually build that truck would be astronomical.
And that brings us to what Provision A calls the operational pilot concept. This is the true genius of Auto O2. It's how it interfaces with the human worker.
Okay, break that down.
It doesn't just hand the dock a complex schematic on a piece of paper. It actually integrates back into the WMS to manage sequence picking. And it provides step-by-step visual load instructions on a screen mounted directly on the forklift.
So it gives them a visual UI.
Yes.
It's essentially translating the complex multivariable math into like a set of flat pack furniture instructions for the loader.
That's exactly what it is. The loader looks at their tablet, and it shows them a 3D diagram. It routes them to the correct aisle, tells them exactly which pallet to pick, and shows them visually, like place this pallet exactly in this position on the floor of the trailer.
Oh.
Then it routes them to the next pick. It guides them sequentially through the entire build, ensuring the axle weight is balanced perfectly as they go.
I see. So that entirely removes the dependency on that tribal knowledge you mentioned earlier.
Completely removes it.
You don't need a 20-year veteran loader who just magically knows how to balance mayonnaise jars versus shampoo bottles. You could have a brand new employee on day one, and as long as they follow the visual sequence on the tablet, they are going to build the mathematically optimized, perfectly balanced load every single time.
There is an industry adage that we saw echoed throughout the sources on this. Good companies plan, but great companies execute.
I love that.
Yeah. Unilever recognized that the most brilliant supply chain strategy in the boardroom is completely worthless if it falls apart at the dock door. By implementing the operational pilot, they removed the human cognitive limits from the equation entirely. Auto 2 just translates the perfect plan into a perfectly executable sequential task for the worker.
And the results really do speak for themselves here. I mean, they take this visual UI, they deploy it to their forklift drivers, and they just shatter that 95% plateau.
They did.
They push their truck utilization up to an incredible 98%.
98%? It's huge.
They eliminate the empty air, they reduce their fleet size requirements, and they save millions of dollars in freight costs by staying off the spot market. I mean, it is a massive operational victory.
Absolutely.
But, if we follow the causal chain here, eliminating that extra 5% of empty space doesn't just reduce the freight bill.
No, it goes much deeper than that.
Because if you aren't paying for that 21st truck, that means that 21st truck physically does not need to enter the network. It just doesn't exist.
Right.
So my question is, does this purely operational, cost-saving move accidentally solve their corporate sustainability targets too?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it completely reframes how enterprise organizations should be viewing sustainability right now.
Because Unilever has a big target, right?
Yes, they have a very aggressive, very public mandate to achieve net zero emissions by 2039.
Wow, 2039.
Yeah. And for a company that manufactures and ships heavy physical goods globally, that is a monumental task.
And it's a task that usually heavily impacts the P&L. I mean, the prevailing narrative around corporate sustainability is that going green is inherently expensive.
That's the assumption, yeah.
The assumption is that to hit a 2039 net zero target, a company like Unilever is going to have to mandate that all their carrier partners purchase massive fleets of incredibly expensive electric trucks, or they're going to have to subsidize premium alternative shipping fuels,
Right.
It usually involves heavy capital expenditure.
And that is the critical insight that makes this case study so important. The presentation proved that freight cost reduction and emissions reduction are not competing corporate goals.
They aren't.
No, they are, in fact, the exact same operational gain.
Okay, let's talk about how this impacts their Scope 3 emissions. Because Unilever doesn't necessarily own the trucks moving their deployment freight, right? They use third-party carriers. So the carbon footprint of those trucks falls into their Scope 3 category. And for a major shipper, Scope 3 is notoriously the largest, most difficult category of emissions to wrangle just because you don't directly control the assets.
The difficulty of Scope 3 is exactly why this software intervention is so powerful. It really comes down to radical efficiency as a form of green technology.
Radical efficiency.
Right. Every time Auto 2 mathematically packs a load tighter, and pushes that utilization up to 98%, it eliminates the empty space. When you compound that eliminated space across thousands of loads in the Unilever network, you mathematically eliminate the physical need for those overflow trucks entirely.
And one fewer truck on the road means fewer empty miles driven, less diesel fuel burned, and lower freight costs paid to the carrier.
Exactly.
But most importantly, it means significantly less CO2 emitted into the atmosphere. The financial savings and the carbon reduction happen simultaneously. There's zero trade-off here.
You don't need to force your carriers to replace their entire fleet with electric vehicles if you can leverage optimization software to eliminate the need for 5% of those vehicles entirely. Right. The most effective form of green logistics is simply the mathematical elimination of the trip in the first place.
Just don't take the trip.
Exactly. And the numbers we are seeing across the industry back this up. By pushing to 98% utilization, Unilever is supporting their 2039 net zero roadmap while saving millions.
That's incredible.
And if you look at Provision as full client base, their load optimization software eliminates 88,000 truck journeys a year.
88,000?
Yes. That results in a reduction of 285,000 tons of CO2 annually.
88,000 heavy freight trucks that they just never had to turn their engines on.
Or started.
They never entered the highway, never idled at a waste station. That completely shatters the perspective that sustainability requires new physical technology. Sometimes it's just about refusing to waste the capacity you already have.
Yeah, it proves that operational excellence is the absolute bedrock of sustainability.
It really is the ultimate alignment of financial incentives and environmental responsibility. It shows that the biggest breakthroughs often don't come from a shiny new piece of hardware, but from looking at a mundane daily process like how a forklift driver loads a trailer and just applying intelligent software to remove the friction that was holding back efficiency.
Spot on.
So just to recap the journey we've taken through these sources today, we started with Unilever, right? A highly successful enterprise, looking at a 95% utilization rate on their deployment trucks.
Right.
Instead of accepting that as a win, they recognized the compounding penalty of that 5% of empty air in a market with severe driver shortages and volatile fuel costs. So by implementing Auto-O2, they bypassed the impossibly complex dock-level physics of axle weights, cube utilization, stackability.
All of it.
They gave their warehouse workers an operational pilot, a WMS-integrated visual UI that removed the need for decades of tribal knowledge and streamlined the picking sequence. And by executing that perfectly at the dock door, they pushed utilization to 98%, saved millions of dollars in freight, and secured one of the most powerful levers available for reducing their Scope 3 carbon emissions.
It is a masterclass in challenging the status quo of your own operations.
It really is, which actually makes me want to turn this around to you listening to this right now. Look at your own career, your own supply chain, or even just your own daily processes. Where are you currently accepting a 95% plateau?
That's a great question to ask.
Right. Where is there a routine or a system that runs just fine, but if you stopped, looked closer, and applied a new layer of optimization to remove the human friction, the compound rewards over time could be massive. Sometimes the biggest gains aren't found in completely reinventing your business. They're hiding in the 5% of empty air you've just learned to live with.
That's incredibly well said. And as you think about how to optimize the gaps in your own processes, I'll leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on the trajectory of the technology we've discussed today.
Oh, lay it on us.
So we have seen how constraint-solving software can perfectly optimize the 3D space inside a 53-foot trailer based on the physical boxes provided to it, right?
Right.
The ERP tells the software the dimensions of the product, and the software solves the puzzle for the dock worker. But if we follow this logic to its natural conclusion, how long until artificial intelligence takes it a step further and works backward?
What do you mean backward?
How long until AI starts redesigning the actual primary packaging of consumer products, specifically to fit the exact mathematical dimensions of the freight truck?
Oh, wow. That is wild. Because right now, packaging is designed purely for the retail shelf, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's designed to look good to the consumer, to stand out on the aisle. It is definitely not designed to stack perfectly over the tandem axles of a trailer.
Not at all. But imagine a future where the slope of a cereal box, or the curve of a shampoo bottle, or the specific footprint of a display palette aren't just drafted by a marketing team.
Right.
What if they're mathematically generated by an AI to lock together perfectly in transit? It could zero out any wasted space right down to the millimeter, perfectly balancing the weight distribution before the product is even manufactured.
That's mind-blowing.
Imagine a supply chain where, from the injection molding on the factory floor all the way to the highway, the entire ecosystem is one unified, mathematically perfect puzzle.
It makes you wonder how much empty space is still hiding inside the retail boxes themselves, you know? It's like realizing that not only did you leave an awkward gap in the trunk of the car on your family road trip, but that the suitcases you bought were the wrong ship to begin with.
Exactly.
It's a whole new level of 3D Tetris for the industry to solve. And honestly, next time you see a freight truck on the highway, I guarantee you're going to be looking at the space inside it a little differently.
I know I will be.
Well, we'll leave it there for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.